Hello, welcome to VR Roundtable, episode 74. My name is Gary, and joining me, as always, is Anthony, Steve, and Chris. So we're going to have probably a little bit shorter of an episode this week. We want to get through a few things, so we're going to start on some of the bigger reviews and stuff like that. So we want to talk about Moss. But before we get on to that, let's go through and catch up with everyone. Chris, how are you this week?
I'm good. I was telling you guys this before the show, but I have a gray Panda now for my self-driving car, so that's fun. It's gonna provide super high accuracy GPS, so that's just what I've been, working on outside of the show.
Yeah, it's all interesting stuff, all this technology stuff. I mean, especially with self-driving cars, because I think in some ways, and we've spoke about, I'm not going to get onto Magic Leap again. We spoke about it again and again, but with all this AI stuff, and it's all intermingled with self-driving cars and the future of augmented reality and VR, I suppose. So, it's interesting to hear your adventures in the world of self-driving cars. Anyway,
it's fun.
Steve, how are you?
I'm good. Nothing major to report. Very, very normal week. I'm glad, but normal's good. Back to normal, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's good. Anthony, how about you, man?
It's going good. I got a banging headache right now, but other than that, it's all good.
It's all the VR. Don't tell the VR haters, because they'll use that as an excuse. Okay, well, anyway, let's go on to the show this week. So the first thing, we have got some news stories we want to go through. There's not too much, in all honesty. Even though we had Mobile World Congress last week, there wasn't a great deal of news that came out of that, but there are a few things we want to hit on later. The first thing we want to talk about, though, is Moss, which is a PSVR game that was released last week by Polyarc. And, this is one of the most anticipated titles, I think it's safe to say. It appeared on a demo disc, the demo disc 2 for the PSVR, and I played through that demo, absolutely loved it, and couldn't wait for the full game. So we're going to get on a few impressions of this game. I guess, well, let's go over to Anthony first on this. Anthony, what do you think of Moss?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is another third-person platforming game. It is a seated, controller-based game, and we've seen Lucky's Tale, we've seen Bound, we've seen Chronos. We've seen a number of these games. Ken recently. These third-person platformers where the world is kind of laid out in front of you, and you're controlling a character and moving it through the world. And this is another one of those. But I think the difference here is just graphically, it's really beautiful. The world of Moss is beautiful. It has this. I think of this old cartoon from way back in the days called The Secret of Nim or something like that. There was this old mouse thing. There's something about little mice and living at the bottom of trees in the forest, and they have the little village and stuff like that. And when you first start out in the game, you're actually in this Harry Potter giant room, this giant hallway. And but then you start controlling Moss. I always say that. You start controlling Quill, but the interesting thing with this game is that you're not just controlling a little character and that's it. You are actually part of the game yourself. So you're in the world of Moss, you are the reader, and you have chosen Quill as your hero. And so the reader is working along with Quill to try to get her through her mission, through her adventure that she's going on. And so you're controlling her, but at the same time, you have this glowing sphere that is kind of floating in front of you, and your controller basically works as this glowing sphere, and you use it to manipulate all kinds of levers and different things, move things out of the way a little bit. And it's a platformer, but honestly, when you boil it down, it's more puzzle game than anything else, because you do a little bit of platforming, basically going from point A to point B. But when you get to point B, it's now turned into a puzzle game that is taking place in a very specific location. And there's a number of puzzles in that location. And then once you solve that, now you're moving to another point. And then when you get there, this is another place where you stop and you kind of camp down for a second. And there's a number of puzzles going on, and you solve the puzzles. And it's just the combination of like the graphics, the music, the animations of Quill. It's I think it might be the best third-person platforming game I've played in VR, period. That includes Lucky's Tale. It includes Bound. It even includes the Playroom VR Robots Rescue. Although if that was a full blown-out game, that might be the one thing that could kind of compete with this. Because in Robots Rescue, again, you're using this controller. Like, you're part of the game. You actually have to shoot out little cables, and then you get your little robot guy, and it's kind of similar to Moss, where you're actually in the game with your character. I remember way back when Robots Rescue, when the Playroom VR first came out, I was thinking, they've got something here. This is a great idea. And Polyarc is the first studio to like say, yeah, we're going to take that idea. Thanks very much, Sony Japan Studio. Thank you very much. We just grabbed that idea and now we're going to build an entire game around it. And they've done a magnificent job with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I do agree. Actually, I'd never thought of that thing that you made the comparison then with the Playroom VR, the Robots Rescue, where that does you doing it's very similar things to what you're doing in Moss, where you're using the motion controller in order to do these extra things to help your character that you're controlling. But that's a direct comparison. It's very similar to what you're doing in there. Steve, I know that you've played a lot of this. What do you think?
I've played and I've completed it. I think it's a fantastic game, right? So I'm our resident gamepad, a third-person fan. I mean, we all like those games, but I probably like them more than the rest of you guys. And that status holds true here because I absolutely adored Moss. Like when the game came out and I started playing it, I didn't play anything else. I beat it in I think 2 days, so 2 sitting sessions. And everything Anthony said is pretty spot on. I think they did a very intelligent thing by engaging the reader. You are the reader, and you're experiencing this story via chapters in a book. In fact, each level or each screen, sort of like a diorama that you go through, is a turn of the page. And as you clear one screen and advance to the next, you hear the sounds of the page turning, and they really present it to you in this way. And I think that pulls you in a little more than if it was just a platformer like Lucky's Tale. When they roll in just the art style, the animations, the polish, this is a shorter game. I think I was somewhere around 3 hours. I didn't time myself, but even though it's a bit shorter, what you're getting is a very polished, detailed, very fulfilling type experience. Like, I would have played another hour or however long they would have made the game if it was longer, but I'm not like. Unlike a lot of games, I don't feel that this was too short, even though it was short. Like, I'm content with it. And it also ends on a bit of a, it's not really spoilers, but it ends on a bit of a cliffhanger where they've strongly hinted at continuing this story. So there's that, and I'm in love with it. As soon as I beat the game, I called my wife over and I said, hey, you're gonna really dig this, and now she's mesmerized and running through it on her own playthrough.
Yeah, it's I've finished it as well, and I think this is an absolutely fantastic game. And there's a few points that I want to make on this. I'll try and keep it, because I've got so many things that I want to say about it, but I'll keep it relatively concise, because I think you guys have pretty much said it all. But there's a few points to make on it, because Moss is a game that does various things, and it does certain things like outstandingly well. I think it does certain things really, really well. But the important thing is that everything else that supports those things are very good, and they're very solid. So I mean, the things that it does outstandingly well, I think, are I'm being a little bit superficial, but it's the graphics. The graphics are so incredible in this game, and they stand up alongside almost anything else that I can think of. I've spoken in the past how Lone Echo is one of the best graphically, best looking games, really, I think, in VR. And I think this stands alongside that in a very different way. It doesn't have graphics in that same way, really. They don't look similar, but they're equally as good in my mind. And it's not just the fact that the graphics are good, and the fact that you're seeing these little diorama scenes, and it is this diorama thing where we've spoken so many times, like Lucky's Tale and that kind of stuff. But this actually, I sort of feel like describing this game as a series of diorama scenes is sort of doing it an injustice in a way, because there's so much beyond that. You can look up and see these things within the distance, and like these deer within the distance, or the middle ground, and then beyond that you can see this castle later on where you're going to be traveling there, and it's sort of like the diorama is the main focus, but there's so much more beyond that, and it takes it to the next level for me. The most impressive thing for me about this game is the little attention to detail, these little flourishes that are in these scenes, where you can really look in and see. It's almost like, I don't know if you guys have seen like model villages or model towns, if you've been to any of those, and there's something satisfying and impressive about going to those things and just looking at the amount of detail that these artists have put into all these little buildings, and just seeing things that you think probably most people won't notice, but they're there, and the artist and the creator of these model villages has taken time to create these things. That's the same level of satisfaction I get from looking at some of these scenes in Moss. You can pick out certain things and you think that there's attention to detail that stands out beyond anything else. But yeah, I mean, the other things that support all of these things that I think are outstanding are the combat. I think combat's good and it's solid. Initially, I was thinking, you know, if there was one thing I was going to criticize, because at certain points while playing this game, I was actively trying to find things that I would criticize about it. And initially, I was thinking combat doesn't feel great. But the longer you play it, I actually really enjoyed that. You can get into a bit of a flow, and that you can attack each of these enemies in different ways, and you have to use different techniques to take them down. So it's quite good when you've got all of these enemies on the screen, and you can get into a flow and try and take them down in different ways, and you don't get hit. So I think the combat's pretty good, the platforming's good. There's a lot of other things I've got listed down here on my notes that I want to talk about, but you know, I think we've pretty much said it all. This is a great game for PSVR, and to me, it's one of the best third-person sort of gamepad-based games. The only thing I'll say is a little bit of a criticism is probably I do like the aspect of using the motion controller, the gamepad, to do these extra parts of the puzzles. It adds an extra dimension to the puzzles. I do like that. However, I will say that when I'm playing it, whenever I feel like I've got to do that part of the puzzle, it's a little bit frustrating. It's not quite as easy as I want it to be. You know, I play this game, and it's probably my own mindset. I sit down in a chair, and I want to play this game with a gamepad and just relax. So when it's asking me to move out quite far in some places in order to do these extra movements with the gamepad, probably that's the only thing I can point to as being a very slight criticism from my own point of view.
See, I think they did that intentionally, though. I think that was, you know, and that's what I was going to say when we were talking offline before we started recording, is yes, it's seated in gamepad, but I think I stood maybe 30% of the time, so I'd boot the game up sitting so that I get that sort of as the reference, the home position.
Yeah.
And then in a lot of the scenes, I would stand up, because you would have to stand up and look to really see all the crevices, to find all the little scrolls. There are these little scrolls that are kind of scattered throughout the world that complete this mosaic that you see up to the side when you are, you know, when you're reading the main book or choosing your chapter that you want to begin with. So it's, I think personally, I'm just counter your point, Gary. I think that having that kind of seated standing, and that reaching out, you know, with the DualShock to hit some of those extended positions, the things that you, the reader, interact with. I think that's their way of kind of creating this middle ground, because you know, there are a lot of VR consumers that are very critical of just parking their butts in a seat and playing with a gamepad. And this is attempting, it is a gamepad game. But it's attempting to knock down that barrier, and I don't think every game can do this. You know, they really tied it into the narrative and made it part of this system. But I think them doing it, and I think it's actually a really good mechanic. Like I never felt the same with this as I did with Lucky's Tale, where I was just parking my butt in a seat and kind of relaxing like I would playing a flat game or something. This was somewhere in between, and I found that very refreshing, very unique.
Yeah. Go ahead, Anthony.
I was just going to say, one of the recommendations that PolyArc makes, like when you first start the game, is to take your camera and actually put it below your TV. This is one of the this is maybe the only PSVR game that I know of where they actually want you to lower your camera more. And the reason they want you to do that is because you're sitting in your chair. You got your DualShock 4 right here, and a lot of times in the game you got to go down with your DualShock and out like that. And so if your camera's up too high, it's not going to be able to sense that very good. So that might be one little issue. Like if people don't want to move their camera around, they might, like every once in a while when they're doing certain actions, it might completely lose your controller. I noticed that a little bit. The other thing I'll say is like this might be just I don't know, but have you guys ever noticed, I call it PlayStation VR swim. It's like where the world is kind of just slightly going like that a little bit. And I'm not talking about the wobble, because the wobble is a very different thing. Wobble, you like the whole world is wobbling and you know it's wrong, and usually your hands are up too high, and that causes that.
You get the wobble when like you're obscuring something, you're using the motion controller to obscure it, and then it will suddenly wobble really. But I do get what you're saying about this swim, and it's like and I don't know. I've tried adjusting my setup with the camera, the position of the camera, that kind of stuff. And on certain experiences, you do get this. You do get this very slight movement of the world, even though everything seems to be set up correctly.
I think.
Yeah, but there's other PlayStation VR. Like this is not a problem with PSVR in general, because I've been in other PlayStation VR games that are rock solid, no swim whatsoever. Like Tumble VR. I play that. There's no, like, it is rock solid. It doesn't move. This one, there's a little bit of this swim, but one of the benefits of this game too, though, is like, how many VR games have you played where Steve's talking about sticking his head and looking in crevices? And there's a lot of VR games where if you try to do that, the world goes back. You know what I mean? It automatically goes, but like it doesn't allow you to do that. It's almost like you're breaking it when you try to do that. In this game, you actually can literally stick your head inside these different chambers and look around to see, oh, is there something in there that I need to activate for Quill? You know, because there's times where she's blocked by some of the geometry, but they kind of do a see-through wall type of thing, so you can see where she is. But every once in a while, like Steve's talking about, you'll actually stand up and you'll kind of look at this entire puzzle that's kind of wrapping around you to try to see, oh, okay, she's probably going to have to climb up there and then jump over there, and you're kind of figuring it out. And so it does allow you to do that, which is cool. And just the only other thing I'll mention about it is sound design. Like a lot of times we don't really give much credit to the sound design, but I just recently got to this one stage where these robotic crab-like enemies that you're dealing with a lot, they start shooting these fireballs, and there's like 3 or 4 of them, and you take Quill and you're running around and you're like on this little sand, and she's running around on this sand and she's jumping up on stuff, and they're shooting fireballs all over the place. And like my headphones, like this was some of the best 3D audio I've ever heard. It was like, I mean, I had it really loud, but it was so impressive. I actually got one of my teenage sons and said, dude, check this out. You got to try this. Is it just me? This audio is incredible, because it's like, it's just so 3D with the audio.
Yeah, everything about this game is polished. This is very like triple A sort of quality development, and I think that's why we're all shocked and surprised here, because we don't normally get that kind of quality in VR games, and at least not when we're expecting it, which was the case here. I wasn't expecting Moss to really honestly be this damn good, and it was. So I put it sort of in that triple A camp. It's a very short AAA game as opposed to being a 7-8 hour AAA game, and I think they chose to put their resources there as opposed to making a less detailed, less polished, but longer campaign.
Well, just very quickly for you guys as well, because this is something we should probably get onto. I finished the game in, I don't believe I went more than 3 hours in this. So it's difficult. I wasn't keeping absolute track, but I'm pretty sure, I did it in 2 sittings like Steve. But to me, the length of the game, because there's obviously this battle between price and length of game that people have a problem with. And in this particular case, I think it's difficult to make that judgment just based on those two factors, because the actual quality of the experience that you're getting for your money is so high. And as you say, it's very, very polished. It's one of the most polished VR games I've ever played. With everything taken into account, I would not have a problem at all with recommended this game for the price that it's going for, even though there is that small caveat that it is a short experience. What do you guys think of that?
I think you're spot on. Like, because I was thinking about that in the same way. I always look at a game and say, okay, what's the value proposition? And there's all sorts of different ways to skin that cat, and everybody, you know, values different to everyone, and everyone's free time varies and all that. But kind of setting a standard, right? You're gonna pay, you know, $10 an hour, you know, $10 US an hour roughly, because I'm going to put the game right at 3 hours for me. I think I found probably 80% of the scrolls in my first playthrough. There were some where I just kind of knew where to look. They would be hidden, and I guess 30 years of playing games, you just kind of know where to look instinctively. But I think the value's there because even though it's only 3 hours, it's 3 really good quality hours. At no point did I feel something was dragging on, or at no point did I feel that something was sort of you know, like when you play a game, sometimes you can feel that they've falsely extended the length of the game by giving you a chore. You know, BioShock gets a sort of a bad rap for that latter third of the game where it just feels like they were extending the length. At no point did I feel that with Moss. Like, it felt legit. Like, what they put out made sense. It was part of the flow. It was paced right, and every second of it was really well done. So from a value proposition, you're getting 3 very good hours that are every minute of each of those hours is well spent. Whereas in another game, you might get 5 hours of playtime out of it, but maybe only 3 of the 5 are high quality hours. You know, something like that. It's kind of the way I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I don't think there's like a formula that you can just plug in and it, like, this formula decides it, because the thing is, one of the things we have to remember though too is we like platformers. We like these third-person games. We love stuff like Blaze Rush and, you know, these third-person games where the world is happening in front of you and you're looking at it and it's beautiful and it's like we like this. But the thing is, not everybody likes this. So I could see somebody picking up Moss where they're kind of like with me and Brass Tactics. Like, Brass Tactics ain't my normal type of genre, but I picked it up and I loved it. But like, I could see somebody being like, yeah, I'll try Moss. But if they're not really into platformers, and then the other thing too, like, one negative I could say about Moss is, like, you might think, oh, this is a platformer. This is a platformer. So it means I'm going to be collecting all these coins. I'm going to be jumping all around. There's going to be 50 different kinds of enemies. You know, there's going to be all these different magical, colorful worlds. That isn't really Moss. Moss is more puzzle game. Like, Lucky's Tale and Moss are 2 different games completely. One of the nice things about Lucky's Tale is you can keep playing it and you can get a flow to it. One of the downsides with Moss is you'll get into some of the, like, I've actually been stuck on some puzzles. You guys obviously didn't get stuck. You finished the game pretty quickly. I've had some problems. I've been stuck on some puzzles, and one of the downsides of, like, being stuck on a puzzle is like I'll stop playing the game, and then when I think about going back to the game, I'm like, yeah, but I'm just stuck in that level in that one spot. Do I really want to bang my head against the wall for 20 minutes trying to figure out how to solve that puzzle, or would I rather go play in depth and just get 20 minutes of pure arcade action? So, you know, I mean, but there's all different kinds of ways we can value this stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Well, because we just wanted to talk about Moss because it was one of the biggest releases, but we'll get onto a few little news stories that we've got now anyway that came out of Mobile World Congress. And really, there wasn't too much. It was all sort of evolving around the HTC Vive, because they did have sort of booths at Mobile World Congress where they were showing off the Vive Pro and also the wireless headset. So this is the first thing to talk about. And they were showing off the HTC Vive Pro with a wireless headset adapter that will be coming out later on this year after the Vive Pro is released. And the what they were doing this kind of demo where people were in like this balloon, like this basket, and they were playing this VR experience where they were in a hot air balloon and they were looking out over various places and this kind of stuff. But it was all performed using the wireless adapter as well. And generally, a lot of people were talking about how positive their experience was with this device. But it was just interesting because this is the first time it's been shown with the Vive Pro. They didn't have the wireless adapter showing with the Vive Pro at CES. It was only shown with a standard Vive at that time, I believe. So it's pretty interesting. Chris, you know, we've spoken so much about the Vive Pro in the past, and we know that you're sort of planning on picking one of these up, possibly, depending on the price. We'll get to that in a little bit. But, you know, when you pick one of these up, do you think the next logical step is to get one of these wireless adapters as well?
I don't think it's consumer ready yet, definitely. Like, you know, this article said there's like minimal latency, but, you know, he spotted it just because, like, you know, we're enthusiasts, we can see this kind of stuff. I feel like if it's, you know, once it's to the point where we don't notice latency, then I would want it. And like, I don't know, it's definitely makes more sense for industry, I think. Like, it's not, I understand why it's not bundled with the Vive Pro or a Vive or anything right now until the cost is way down. But yeah, there's not really too much to say about this other than I'm glad that it works with the Vive Pro, because I was concerned that it would have made the latency worse or there'd be some weird problems with it. But overall, like, I don't think I would pick it up. I don't care about the wire too much right now.
No, do you know what? I've sort of increasingly getting frustrated by the wire, and I don't know if it's just because I know that there's solutions out there that I can possibly get that will sort of get rid of that little step, but they're too expensive for me at the moment. Steve, what do you think of this? Did you see the demo in action on any videos or anything?
Nope. I didn't see it. I remember seeing an image of it circulating on Twitter or something like that, but no, I didn't watch it directly. But in general, about I guess your question to Chris was, you know, wireless on the Vive Pro, and you know, I'm going to hold firm to my previous answer is that I think wireless has value, even if it adds minimal latency. I think it's definitely value, but I don't know. Me as a consumer, and I'm very different than maybe other consumers, but I don't know yet that I have one headset, one and only one headset to go wireless, and that presents a problem. You know, if I were to buy a Vive Pro, I would probably, it would be the highest spec hardware that I would have, and maybe I could justify wireless on it because I would probably only reach for it, maybe. But then there's the whole Oculus Rift or Oculus software with Revive thing sitting out there. So I want to get to a point where the HMDs themselves are agnostic, and then and only then where I know all the games I want to play are going to play on this one headset, then I can put a value on wireless, because if I'm going to be trading headsets, or, you know, constantly upgrading a headset every, I don't know, 12-18 months, then buying wireless modules every time is kind of not what I want to do, considering how expensive they are. Like, I'll say it again, I want a generic wireless module. Give me wireless HDMI and wireless USB so that I can strap the thing to any headset that I want and call it a day. And TPcast is not a line. They have the TPcast for the Rift, they have the TPcast for the Vive, but they're different damn models. Like, come on, guys. Like, I would buy TPcast right now. Like, as soon as we get off the show, we'll go and plop down the money for TPcast if it was universal. No questions asked. And that's the only thing stopping me.
It's an interesting thing, though, about this wireless headset, because it does feel like it's a little bit more streamlined than the TPcast solution, because you've got this wireless module, but then you've also got a PCI card which fits in your computer and which connects to the transmitter that you place up high, exactly the same as the TPcast. But to my knowledge, from what I've read, you don't have to sort of mess around with like all these routers and things like that. The router is sort of built into this PCI card, and that deals with everything that it needs to deal with. So, you know, for me, this kind of solution is definitely more attractive than the TPcast solution at this stage. But even then, I'm not too sure I'm ready to jump in on these things. Anthony, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, my thoughts on buying a wireless adapter is, one of the issues is, like, I mean, I think you guys are in the same boat with me where you kind of want a new VR headset that's going to have a huge jump in resolution. And as good as what the Vive Pro is doing, that's not the jump that we're actually looking for. We're looking for a jump where we want to double up. You know, we want to double up our resolution. And so why would I buy a wireless adapter that isn't capable of supporting a doubled up resolution? So I would need a wireless adapter that seems like it would work for the next 3 years. I don't want a wireless adapter that might work for 1 year. And we got all this 5G stuff going on, but that is a whole nother ball game. But yeah, so I don't know. But one other little comment I'll make just in regards to Mobile World Congress and like this balloon demo and all that stuff. I saw a video where a Vive representative was there, and this was like right in front of where the balloon was. You know, they were doing the balloon demo and all of that. Ben Lang, that's where he did his demo. And this guy was talking to a Vive rep, and he was trying to press him about, hey, man, first quarter 2018, you know, looking at the calendar here, the days are ticking away. If this is a first quarter 2018 product, what's going on here? And he kind of pressed the guy. Now, this was just a HTC Vive rep that was on the show floor. He wasn't like president of anything, so he probably didn't know much. But he seemed to kind of like fall back on first half of 2018, and that's kind of news there. Like if the Vive Pro, because we're in March now, there's only what 25 days or whatever left of this month. And that's the first quarter. So apparently this isn't a first quarter product.
Yeah, there was some people were talking about that. I remember seeing it on the subreddit, and they were saying how, well, maybe he's just talking about the full package, but like including the base stations, the 2.0 base stations and the controllers. But I don't think that is the case, because they were pointing towards sort of the second half of the year for the full package originally. So he must have been referencing just the headset upgrade. But yeah, I did see that, and it was an interesting thing. The other thing at Mobile World Congress is they also shown off some of these Vive trackers with the 2.0 Lighthouse sensors as well. So you know, that it seems like everything is progressing towards this thing where, because they've got the base stations that will be coming out with the full package, and then you've got these trackers as well. You know, I wanted to ask you guys, actually, you know, with these trackers, I feel like we've heard very, very little about them lately over the past few months. And the fact that now they're showing off these 2.0 Vive trackers at Mobile World Congress, does that point to some kind of like extra push to these in the future? Because I think part of the problem with these Vive trackers, at least from my point of view, is cost to sort of, I guess, value, because how many experiences are going to use these? How much value am I going to get out if I purchase one of these things? Chris, you know, if these Vive trackers were available and you could get some, even if they were a lot cheaper than they are, they're sort of $100, I believe, if you wanted to pick some of these up. But even if they were a lot cheaper, would you be tempted if they were half the price even?
Not really. It's just the lack of developer support. Like, I don't want to buy stuff that works for like 2 games and call it a day. Like, that's just too much money to invest in those games. So I get it if HTC wants to be like, we're gonna have like a lot of games coming out with these, then I might be starting to get on board. Yeah. This article's just frustrating because, like, come on, HTC, you've only started selling these a few months ago. Why didn't you include 2.0 in the box? Like, that's why we thought they were being delayed for so long, because they kept not coming out for months, and then they just released them with 1.0 anyway. And then I don't know what they're doing.
I really love the idea of these trackers, but we need a reason to buy them. And even as enthusiasts, I don't feel like I've got any reason to buy them. Steve, what do you think of this?
Same. I don't have any reason to buy it, and that's unfortunate. I like the idea, like you say. It's, you know, inserting having other physical tracked objects makes sense within the Lighthouse tracking sphere. But the problem, as Chris said, and really as you both said, is there's no games really. There's just a handful of games, and there doesn't appear to be anything on the horizon that's going to crack these open where you know, developers are going to start using them in mass. And because of that, there's, in my mind, no reason to purchase it. And I think it goes into HTC's model somewhat, and of wanting to push the arcades and the enterprise level and the business use. Like, there may be a reason for a business to have it. There was some information that came out in and around the same time as Mobile World Congress. Maybe Volkswagen spoke, but I saw an article where they are using Vives for a lot of their training in their manufacturing facilities and things like that. And I don't know if they're using Vive trackers, but there may be a piece of equipment or something that they want to put a tracker on. And I really think that is where these trackers are going to thrive, is in an enterprise or a business situation where people are making custom software just for their use only, and they may integrate Vive trackers for whatever purpose. But as of right now, it doesn't appear that they're going to be a major thing for gaming, which is what we are going to look for in our purpose.
Yeah. To my knowledge, and we could probably touch on this later when we talk about the game, but Island 359, Cloudgate seem to be the developers that are really pushing this Vive tracker thing. And I guess if I was in their position, I'd be a little bit disappointed that these things are not more readily available. There's not more people talking about them, and they're not a little bit cheaper. I just feel like they're a little bit too expensive for what they are, really. Anthony, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems is like, if you could buy a 4-pack of these trackers for $100, then sign me up. I'll buy a 4-pack, because they showed one of the things that they showed at the Mobile World Congress. There was a UK-based company called Miepa Sports, and they work with like professional football clubs in Europe and stuff. And they actually had 4 Vive trackers, the new ones. They had them on each of the cleats, each of the soccer cleats. They had a tracker on each of those, and then they had a tracker on each of the shin guards. So basically 4 of them down at your feet. But they showed these professional football players, soccer players, doing all kinds of like dribbling maneuvers with pinpoint accuracy, and that was incredible. Like, that is some next level type stuff, but you need 4 of them. That's 400 bones plus shipping and tax. I mean, you're talking 500 bones just to be able to dribble with some soccer balls. And so that's a problem there. Now, I know another game was announced recently called Major League Baseball Home Run Derby. And when they showed the trailer for that, like at last year's All-Star game, they actually had real physical baseball bats, and they had a tracker on the very top of it, and they had people in these batting cages playing doing a home run derby with a real baseball bat, swinging it around. Now, in that case, you would only need a single tracker. But, Gary's talking about Island 359. I think for that to work properly, you need to have like 2 trackers on your hips or something, or one on your hip and 2 on your feet or something. So, I mean, you're going to need multiple trackers. The price is too high to try to get people to buy so many of them. But in an arcade scenario, it could be a completely different thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. I guess as consumers, we're always looking at it from that point of view. We always want sort of the consumer point of view on these kinds of things, but I think you're absolutely right on the arcade aspect of these things. But just talking about Mobile World Congress and HTC, because really HTC were the ones that were at that event and sort of showing off some of their Vive technology there. But we wanted to just get into a quick discussion about HTC as a company. There's been various things that have been happening over the past few weeks with them as they merge sort of their VR and smartphone businesses into one, and sort of restructuring their business in order to do this kind of stuff. We'll get onto some of the price rumors for the Vive Pro in a second, but first of all, I just want to concentrate on this restructuring of HTC and what we all think of that. What does it mean? What could it mean, if anything? Chris, have you got any thoughts on this? Like, with HTC restructuring to combine smartphone and VR, does it mean anything, or is it just a company restructuring as they do sometimes?
I'm leaning towards that it's a company restructure, just because the smartphone industry is probably doing so bad for HTC that they need something to kind of start making them money, and trying to kind of focus on enterprise, it seems like, in the VR space. So I think it's just a basic restructuring that had to happen. I don't really know. I mean, I know it means an increased like funding and commitment to VR for sure, but I don't know if it really means more consumer products or more consumer focus.
Yeah. I think with this, I think that this story of them restructuring and doing all this stuff can be spun any way anybody would choose to do it. You could spin it in a positive way for VR. I don't think in terms of a company you can spin it in a positive way. In terms of HTC as a company being a positive story, but what I will say is, any company that is transitioning from, say, a solely smartphone-based business that is transitioning into VR, there is inevitably going to be some kind of point within that transition where they lose money. They need to restructure. They need to sort of lose personnel and restructure their management. And I guess I feel like you could spin it in a positive way because they're focusing more on VR. They're moving away from smartphones. They're focusing more on VR, and it could be a positive story from that point of view. And during that process, it might look from outside perspectives that the company is losing money. They've lost their sight, but they're going through a transition which will inevitably do that to them. Now, I think it's positive because in the long run, if we've got companies like HTC that are investing this heavily in VR, and more or less to me, it looks like they're focusing their efforts almost to the point of where they're going solely into VR. And I think that can be positive for his guys, at least anyway. Anthony, what do you think?
Well, if you look at the actual restructuring, so they had like these 5 different general managers that were in charge of you had Alvin Wang Graylin. He was like the China guy. Then you had Raymond Pao, which was like another part of Asia. Then you had the European guy. I think his name is Paul Brown. You had Dan O'Brien, which was for the USA. But the thing about all of these guys are very specific VR related managers, and now all of a sudden it's like basically, okay, you're the VR related guy, and it's like they come to you and say, guess what, now you're also the smartphone guy as well, so now you get VR and all smartphone, and it's all under you. And what that tells me is you're not just going to give your entire smartphone business to a general manager that isn't really up on that. So to me, it sounds like they are transitioning completely away from smartphone stuff, and well, at least from like higher end smartphones, because I believe the U12 is like their flagship phone, and a lot of people believe that once that one has like they're not going to have a U13, they're not going to have a flagship phone, that they're going to basically transition more to VR, and then they're just going to make a lot of cheapo Android phones to just kind of make some money from that. But it does sound like they're really moving to VR. Now, you could spin it in some negative ways, because the reason, like, for example, you could say, well, yeah, VR has this huge future, but the future has not been realized yet. We're still really far away from any kind of mainstream adoption. And for a company the size of HTC, for them to generate enough revenues to keep this boat afloat just off the back of VR doesn't really make a lot of sense. But at the same time, I looked at a 5-year chart for HTC stock, because when all this information hit on Reddit, you had a number of people saying, oh, this is it, it's a sinking ship, Vive is going down, I mean HTC is going down, the rats are scrambling off. Because you had that one guy, he worked for HTC for 6 years. I forget what his Chia-Ling or something like that. I forget what his name was, but he was one of their main guys, like their main smartphone guy, been there for 6 years, all of a sudden announced his resignation out of the blue. That's what caused all these dominoes to fall. And so I was reading some of these different posts where it was like doom and gloom. HTC is done. This is a sinking ship. Their stock is going down. And I heard so much of that I expected, when I looked at their 5-year chart, that it would be like, just going straight. But it's not that bad. Their stock is not as bad as some of these doom and gloomers are making it out to be. So they might be able to actually transition into a VR company. But what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to become a lean, mean VR machine, and they're going to have to get rid of all the other stuff that's dragging them down and that's what they're doing. They are becoming lean and mean by having these 5 general managers. They're mostly VR is what they're all about, and now they're taking over the smartphone thing. So they're trying to compress their company into a more focused, tightly knit VR based company. And 5G, man, it's going to blow everything up. So we're going to need these VR headsets everywhere, right? We're going to need millions of them.
Yeah, Steve, what are your thoughts specifically on this point of sort of HTC amalgamating sort of VR and smartphone businesses?
I think it's negative. I think it's negative for the company, no question. They are looking for new sources of revenue, and because they can't get it from the smartphone sector, they've just kind of lost out to Samsung, Apple, and whomever. Looking at their stock, I just pulled their stock trend up. I think it's pretty doom and gloom, and it's doom and gloom because there's no reasons to believe that it's going to go the other way. Right, like they've given zero indicators that they're going to turn it around and make that thing start climbing upwards. But you know what? I don't have any stock in HTC myself, so I'm not financially impacted by their company's performance. And as far as I know, the three of you don't have any HTC stock that you own in your portfolios either, so it's probably not a big deal. For what we do care about VR, as you guys say, it could be spun positive or negative. I think I'm going to go more neutral negative, because I look at Sony, and VR isn't a primary source of revenue for them. They have the success of the PlayStation brand itself, the PlayStation 4, the software sells on their store, and they're able to fund VR in such a way that maybe they're not losing money on it, or maybe they are. Maybe it is a little bit of a loss leader. I don't know. I don't have access to Sony's financial data that paints that picture. I look at Oculus, somewhere sort of in between both companies, but they got the looming Facebook ultimately backing them. So again, it's they don't need VR to be profitable right now for it to be successful. Then I look at HTC. If they're putting a lot of eggs in the VR basket, they need VR to be profitable now, and I think that is one reason that it simply costs more, and I think it doesn't help that Valve, they've aligned themselves as this Steam VR headset, but then they're buying all this stuff from Valve, and guess who is making money? Valve, and they're making money off of every one of these lighthouses, and it's kind of HTC's in a spot, but at the same time, LG is that project still a thing? Like, are we going to get an LG Steam VR headset? So I don't know, other than the Pimax, I don't know of any other Steam VR based headset to compare it to. So HTC, fortunately, maybe sort of have that market cornered for now, but even then, I don't know how they're going to continue to be price competitive and in a market where they have to be profitable on the VR hardware now. They're not selling software really. Viveport, I have to imagine, isn't bringing in truckloads of money. So the only way they're going to get the money and hope to turn that stock chart the other way is to start selling this stuff for a profit, and that means consumers are going to be paying more. That's the only way I see it.
Don't you think, though, like, just taking it as a, say we can go through like this hypothetical scenario where HTC they were a smartphone business, now they've sort of dipped their toes into VR, and it feels like they're transitioning as a business over to VR entirely. They're moving away. For a company to make such a radical change in their business, I can't really, I think by going from one state to the next state, they're inevitably going to have this situation where at some point within that, they're going to have a stock drop, like a major stock drop, where they're in the middle of that transition. So I think just looking at stock prices and this kind of stuff, it is doom and gloom, but it could swing around. And I think, honestly, they're sort of the future of their business really relies on how well future VR products are adopted. It really is relying on that more than ever. So that's the thing. I think it could be positive. At the moment, it is a negative. I mean, there's no doubt about that. At the moment, it's a negative thing what's happening at HTC. If it goes on long enough and more people adopt VR, I think it will be positive in the long run if they survive that long. I think that's the thing. They need to ride this period out.
Another thing to think about.
Oh,
go ahead.
I was gonna say I agree. I understand what you're saying, Gary, and I agree with that. And to layer it up, I think they have leverage with Valve. I think they need to renegotiate some of these prices. I don't know how much they're paying. I hear rumors of they pay $60 for a Lighthouse, which would explain why it cost us double that or whatever. I think if there's no one else signing up to be a big Steam VR, kind of the key primary Steam VR HMD on the market, which that's what the Vive is via HTC, I think they need to put some pressure on Valve, and I don't know that they're not doing that, but ultimately I think they got to get their price down, and that's on the base Vive as well. It's got to come down because everyone else is getting cheaper. Well, there was a Rift for sale, I think, in Germany for what, $269, $299, something like that. And I'm don't quote me on that. I'm kind of just pulling that out on the spot, and I don't have the statistic in front of me. But I know there was some sale at Game, something like that. Anyways, my point is I see it looks like prices are drifting downwards for the other headsets, and the Vive really isn't doing that. The Vive Pro doesn't look like it's going to be cheap. So ultimately, money is the biggest elephant in the room, and I don't think HTC is in a good position financially.
Yeah. Anthony, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, one quick little thing I had to say is, like, the more they get smaller and leaner and meaner and streamline their business more, the better, the more likely, like the more attractive of an acquisition target they become. Because another company that might be interested in scooping up HTC, like they might be like, yeah, but they got all this smartphone crap that we don't really want anything to do with. All we want is their VR business. They kind of have a little foothold into this VR thing right now, and maybe we can use them as a stepping stone. So the more leaner and meaner and well run they get and compress their company, the more of an acquisition target. And then the other thing is, let's just consider for a second a complete and utter meltdown of HTC, where it is literally a sinking ship and it just absolutely sinks. Like, if you are an HTC Vive fanboy, this is not the end of the world, because what will happen is their assets will be sold off. Their assets will be auctioned off. And I absolutely guarantee you there will be a company that will step in and scoop all of this stuff up and create something out of it that could be better than what we're even getting with HTC. The customer service cannot get worse. We know that. The prices and the shipping charges cannot possibly get worse. So even in a complete doom and gloom situation, there's actually a silver lining on the other end of that.
Yeah, well, just sticking on HTC and the Vive Pro, there was these rumours that came out last week at Mobile World Congress. There was an article written on Mobile Syrup that went into somebody who was demonstrating the Vive Pro, and at the end of this article, they actually wrote that the Vive Pro is going to be released later on this year for $799. That was very quickly sort of retracted, and the article was updated, and it sort of said that these prices were rumours. But a lot of people jumped on this and said, and I think there's actually some grounding for this, because what they said was maybe they were given some inside information based on this, and they just reported on that inside information. The fact that they gave it such a definitive figure, and it was so definite within the original article, I think speaks volumes. But they are rumors. We don't know the cost of this Vive Pro, and most people were saying this $799 was based on just the headset, while others were speculating, maybe he was talking about this being the full package. But let's get on to this price now. Assuming, I think most people were saying that this $799 was probably going to be just for the headset itself, if it's true. And I need to stress that this is all sort of rumors. We don't know anything to do with this. We've had so many rumors about the price of this headset, so it's difficult to say. But if this $799, just as an interesting sort of discussion around this, what are everyone's thoughts on this? If HTC were to release this headset for $799, what do you think, Chris?
I think they'd be crazy to do that, just because the Odyssey was on sale like last week or something, or the other week, for like $350, something around there, and it's basically the same resolution and stuff. I've been leaning more towards the Odyssey every single day that I don't hear things, or I hear the price is increasing, or like it's getting delayed. Just like the more I think about it, the more I'm like, man, like if it's this expensive, or even if it's like more expensive than $300, there's just no reason to not get an Odyssey, just because even the Odyssey controllers are like a little bit nicer than the Vive ones, in my opinion, just because like they're kind of refined Windows MR controllers. So I don't know. It's not competitive at all, other than Enterprise. So it's crazy.
Do you know, like when the Vive Pro was first announced, I think you said to us, I think you even said it on the show, you know, you're going to be picking one of these things up. If it's $799, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, no, I mean, if it's like top end, like 400 for a headset, I might, just for the show, but I feel like if it wasn't for like the show, I wouldn't buy one anyway. Like I might even return it if it's not good enough. Like I don't know. The more I think about them, the longer they take, and the more the price gets increased, the less it sounds like a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've had rumours from sort of $350 originally up to $800 now just for the headset. I mean, it's quite a wide range to go for. And at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if it's anywhere within there. If it's $350 or if it's up to $800, I wouldn't be surprised at this point because there's been so many rumours coming out. Steve, what do you think of this price? I think you alluded to it earlier. What do you think?
That $799 for just the headset.
Yeah.
I think that's crazy talk. Like I think there's no, they would be so far off the mark if they come out at $799 for headset only. I believe $799 for, you know, full package, right? Because you're paying a $200 premium, and really the only thing different from the current full package is the higher resolution and you know the headphones and the improvements that they've made. There shouldn't be really any difference in the controllers from a cost to HTC perspective. You know, the lighthouses. Yeah, it's $799's gotta be, like, for this to make any sense in the world, $799 has to be a full package, and I think that's okay. Like if the standard, you know, Vive consumer, what do we call it, Vive Lite, what would we call the base, Vive base, right? Like whatever the normal Vive, vanilla Vive, like if that's $599, then $799 for that package, perfect. Like you know, it's still a little bit pricier than I'd like. You know, $800 is a lot, but I can't complain. $799 headset only, it's dead man walking. Like it's just dead before arrival, and I hate to sound that way. Like was a Vive fanboy, I guess. You know, this Vive is what, you know, I started off as my first headset, and I want HTC to succeed, and I think that's maybe why I'm overly critical, and that's because I care. I want HTC to succeed. I want there to be a product like the Vive on the market to drive everyone else, right? Like if Oculus is standing out on an island and effectively have the market cornered, you know, the Oculus would still be $599 or whatever their price was for the recent price drop, or the not so recent price drop. So I hope this thing succeeds, and $799 ain't gonna cut it.
$799, it's dead to consumers. I think that would be safe to say. Commercial use, which seems to be where they're aiming their efforts or focusing their efforts, I don't know. I'm not so sure. I agree with you. I think $799 is a product which includes everything, which is the original price of the HTC Vive. Absolutely perfect price point. I think you're getting a good upgrade. You're getting the whole package for that. If it is just a headset, it's dead to consumers. It's got to be. I can't see most people, well, like a vast majority of people, upgrading for that price. But commercial use, it could be something different. But Anthony, what do you think?
Yeah, so I will play devil's advocate, and I will tell you why it is going to be $799. Okay, so right now the package is $599 for the entire package. Now you're going to tell me that they're going to come out with a full package with the HTC Vive Pro that is only $200 more. No one in their right mind would buy the original Vive anymore. So the original Vive makes no sense whatsoever. And if you go back to the CES video where Dan O'Brien was up there on stage, he made it perfectly clear that the standard HTC Vive is going nowhere. He said that it was a 2018 for the entire year of 2018, the standard Vive is going to be available. So you got to understand there's two products here. And for the products to make sense, one of them, there has to be distance in the price between the two. There has to be this low end mass market, or a little bit more of a mass market one, and then you have this really high end one. So either the $599 price that currently it is right now would have to drop to like $399, and then you'd have the $799. You have to have a major difference here, otherwise you're cutting off your ear or nose or whatever to spite, whatever that term is, when you do whatever to spite your face or whatever. That's what they would be doing here. So I know it sounds like when this rumor came out, people in the Vive subreddit and just everywhere where this rumor was being talked about, they were like, oh, there's no way this could just be the headset only. No way, heads will roll, blah, blah, blah. Like there's no possible way. No, there is a possible way. And the possible way is these are two completely different products targeted to two completely different segments of the market. And do you guys remember that quote a long time ago? This was an Xbox quote when the Xbox One was first being talked about, and it was going to be online only, and there was all these complaints like, oh my God, it's online only. And they had some sailors that were on a submarine, and they were talking about, oh, we play the Xbox on a submarine. How are we going to do that? And then the chief of Xbox at that time, I forget what that guy's name was. He's like got bumped. He left and went to Zynga. And yeah, Don Matrick. And Don Matrick says, well, we have a product for you. It's called the Xbox 360.
And he created that distance, and he got outed. He was wrong, right?
But what I'm saying is, we have a product for you. It's called the HTC Vive. Okay, the HTC Vive Pro. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Right.
Like, my original theory was $499 headset only. That's my original theory. And honestly, if you look at the Vive Focus in China is like 525-ish US dollars if you like did the math, but not counting the Chinese taxes that also increase it as well. But like if the Vive Focus came to the US, it'd be somewhere in the $500-ish range. The Vive Focus, like the optics, the screens, it's all HTC Vive Pro. And it even has additional stuff that the Vive Pro doesn't have, and it's selling in the. So that's the argument where there is no way in hell the Vive Pro can be $799.
Exactly.
That's the argument for that.
Yeah, because that's got all the very similar sort of optics and that kind of stuff, display, and yet it's also got all this extra computational power within it as well, and all these cameras to do 6 degrees of freedom and this kind of stuff. I can't see this being $799 unless they simply. I don't know what could be the scenario where it would be that. I think you're probably right. $500 makes sense for a standalone HMD for people when it first comes out. I think that price could very quickly drop, but who knows at this point.
Yep. So are we going to recalibrate our projections? I think I think we all said $399. I think I said $350 back in January, right after CES. So standalone headset and full package. Let's recalibrate our predictions. I'll send it to you first, Gary.
Okay. I can't even remember what I said last time, to be honest, but I'm still thinking around 450. At this point, 450, 500. I'll go half between the rumors. We've got 350 watts, we've got 800. Let's say $500 for the standalone HMD.
Full package.
800. Yeah, I'll go for 800 on that. Yeah.
Anthony.
Well, I'm going to say $499 for standalone. I can't say $800 for the full package unless there was a major price drop on the regular, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. There has to be.
What do you think? Like, because we've got like PS4. They brought out PS4 Pro. What is the difference in price? I don't actually know offhand, to be honest. But what's the difference in price between those? Because they're still selling those. It's $200.
I think so.
Okay.
But that's a much lower priced item. Right now the Vive right now is $600, right? And then you have a full package with the Vive Pro for $800. It's a $200 difference. What person in there, unless they're deliberately doing that to basically pretend that they have a lower priced option, but they really don't. They're forcing you this way, but they're pretending, oh yeah, we do have this lower priced, more affordable for families over here at $600. But no one in their right mind would do that. So I really feel like the combined bundle will either be $900 or the Vive the regular Vive has to drop in price.
Okay,
Chris.
Well, yeah,
yeah,
we gotta get around.
Gosh, it's probably gonna be like 500 for standalone, and I'm probably not gonna want to get it anymore. But and then I'm guessing like 1,000 for the system. Like every time we hear about Enterprise, yeah, every time we hear about Enterprise and stuff over and over again, they keep talking about Enterprise. I'm getting less and less optimistic about the price, but I hope they surprise me and it's actually really low. But I'm not gonna expect it anymore.
Okay, I'm gonna say 450 for the headset only, and I'm gonna lock in at 800 for the bundle, only because the bundle doesn't change. The only difference is the headset. Same controllers, same lighthouses, no improvement in technology there other than the bump to 2.0, which I don't think is going to be costing HTC any more money from Valve. So there's no reason to elevate the prices there. So just the delta between the two headsets, I'm gonna put a value of $200 on it.
I do. It's a good point that Chris was making there, though, about the references to commerce and stuff. This could go anyway, because if they don't care about consumer sales for this device, and they know they've got all the statistics, they've got all the data to see where they've sold most of these HMDs. If they're aiming more towards commercial uses of this, then I think it could easily be. It could go either way. Who knows?
Right. It could be. I mean, there is the original Vive. It has that Enterprise, you know, with the one with the blue circle on it. I forget they call it Vive something, but Vive for Business. It's like $1,100-1,200. It's expensive, and really all you're getting, it's the same hardware. You're getting the little blue circle, and you're getting different warranties, a different sort of customer service chain to go into if you have an issue. So what you really is, you're paying for a service there, and I think if they do something like that with the Pro, they could have the Vive Pro for consumers, but then also have the Vive Pro Enterprise Business Edition, whatever they want to moniker they want to give it. That then basically the customers or the businesses are front loading some of their service costs.
One last thing I'll say though is let's just if that's $799 for an a la carte headset, if that was actually real, as crazy as that sounds and as bizarre as that sounds, if they made a batch of 50,000 of them, they sell out. At $799, they sell out. There are enough Vive fanboys that won't care. They will jump on it. So, I still think they could always lower it later, too.
Yeah. We've just got another couple of little points to talk about with this. And the first one, I just want to touch on this. It's to say that Rift is now taken over Vive in the Steam VR hardware survey. So in terms of users that are using Steam VR, Rift is actually for the first time taken over from Vive. Now, it's very, very close. I think it's something like 47% to 45%, and the rest is made up of sort of mixed reality headsets. So it's pretty much 50-50 with the Rift and Vive. I don't think this means too much other than the fact that the Rift is cheaper, so it's caught up, and I think that's really my take on it. There's not too much to say on this. Has anybody got any thoughts they want to specifically?
Well, I do think when after the CES and after the Vive Pro announcement, we all kind of thought it was weird that they were doing an HMD only upgrade, and that the full package wasn't going to be available until later in the year. Now that looks a little bit different, because there's the standalone headset doesn't appear to be immediately on the horizon first quarter like initially stated. But I think over the last couple months, what they've had is a sort of some people putting the brakes on purchasing a Vive. And because they know that this newer headset is on the horizon, and they're holding out for it, or they've decided to go and pick up another headset and intend on selling it for the Vive Pro when the Vive Pro is available. And that's something that I know I predicted. I think we all mentioned it and agreed in that episode, was that it didn't make a lot of sense business-wise for HTC to do that during this gap from Pro announcement to whenever the full package releases. You have people sitting outside the VR fence total. They have nothing. They have no VR hardware, and they're not going to necessarily pull the trigger on the Vive. And I would agree with them. there isn't a lot of sense to do that. And I think that is being reflected here. We've seen a lot of Reddit threads. We've seen a lot of commentary from people out there that says, well, I want to get into VR, but I don't want to jump in and buy a Vive now. You know, I want this Pro. I want this better, this 1.5, you know, headset. And I think that's reflected in these statistics. I think over these last 2 months, Vive sales are probably way down, as they should be, because a new version, you know, basically, I know we're calling it the Pro, but a new version has been announced, and people want to buy that one.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
The only reason why I feel like Oculus is doing so well is because they're like, we are not having a new headset for 2018. Don't worry about it. You can buy them right now. They're not going to turn obsolete. Whereas Vive is like, oops, it's obsolete, and now you just have to wait for us to release it. So it's a bad position.
Yeah. Have you got any thoughts on this, Anthony?
You know, the only thought that I have on this is like, the fanboy wars live on. They really do, because like on my other little show, I commented on this, and in the comments, it's just Oculus is better because of this, and it's like, guys, most of us are like in our 30s and 40s, and we're still in this fanboy thing. This is a non-story as far as Rift should have overtaken the Vive months ago. It's amazing that it's lasted, like it's amazing that the Vive has held up as long as it has, considering the price disparity between the two. I mean, it's just a dollar and cents thing. This is not an Oculus versus Vive thing. This is just simply financial logic. And I can tell you this, the Microsoft mixed reality headsets, they had about like 5.5% or whatever. Those are going to start jumping up in percentage of ownership if they continue to have these like $240 deals at Amazon all the time, because I'm telling you, in the real world, like, money matters, price matters, and at the end of the day, money talks, bullshit walks, and you price your thing low enough, you're getting sales, you're buying sales.
And now the conversation comes back full circle. Welcome to 40 minutes ago, where you're saying money is really ultimately all that matters. Resolution, blah, 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 Lighthouse, blah, blah, blah. It's money. Money is what drives all this, and that's what matters the most.
Yeah, I think it matters when the experience from both of these headsets is so similar. I mean, we've owned both headsets. We know that the experience is pretty much the same for the most part. There's obviously things that will contradict that, but I think for the most part it's very similar in price, will make a difference. The last thing I want to talk about from this is Ready Player One again. I booked tickets. Has anybody booked tickets for the movie yet?
I need to do that.
Okay.
So is it Thursday? Like, because you know how sometimes they
Yeah.
have the movie the night before, like a midnight showing or whatever?
Yeah, we have one. I can go to one on the 28th, actually, but I'm not going to that. I'm not actually seeing it till the Friday, so I'll be seeing it on the 30th.
Yeah, they bumped up the day because my birthday is on the 30th, and you know, this whole time I'm like, oh, the movie comes out on my birthday. Very easy to remember that date. And then on the latest trailer, they moved it up to the 29th, and I thought that was kind of weird. And I'm assuming that refers to, because that's a Thursday. Normally movies don't come out on a Thursday, and I'm thinking that's making reference either to maybe the trailer we pulled was out of maybe Europe somewhere where it is the 29th. I don't know. Or they're referring to the Thursday night, you know, kind of midnight or 10 p.m. type really late showings. It's either that or they'll just open the damn thing up on Thursday at noon and you can skip work and go watch it, which I might do.
That's what I want to do.
I've booked tickets for me and my son to go and see it, although over here we've not actually got an age rating yet. I've read on the internet that it's probably going to be what we have over here, PG-13, which means that he can come with me as long as he's with an adult. So I'm hoping that it'll be okay for him to see, but it still says to be confirmed in terms of like the actual age rating for this movie, but hopefully we'll be okay on that. It let me book tickets, so
see, Gary, over here anybody can go, and you're encouraged to bring your firearms along with you.
Oh god. Let's not get into that. Okay, well, just on this Ready Player One story then. So there is an experience now at South by Southwest, because HTC are the official partner of Ready Player One, and they're sort of doing this experience, which I don't know if we're ever going to get to try out at home, but they are going to show it at South by Southwest. So So I don't know too much about South by Southwest. Have you guys been to that at all?
I've not. I believe it's in Austin, Texas, is where the event is. I don't know if it's there every year or whatever, but I think it's pretty pricey to go. It's a it's not just gaming or electronics. I think it's movies and music. It's a pretty wide event. I don't know too much about it, but I know it's pretty wide reaching.
Yeah,
I just know that like Austin, Texas is kind of considered like the Seattle/San Francisco of the Southwest. It's like one of the more liberal cities in that area, and it's also known as like a big time party town. And then South by Southwest, when that comes in, it's just like a huge gigantic party everywhere basically. And I know for this Ready Player One thing, I did a little story on it. They Brazos Hall, which is like this famous location in Austin, it's going to be nothing but Ready Player One from the start of this, which I think is March 9th through March 11th. That's when all these different experiences are going to happen at Brazos Hall, and you'll be able to make your own little 3D avatar, and then you'll be able to email it back to your email. And there's supposedly they're going to have all these different experiences where it's like classic arcade games that have been somehow updated with inspired in some way by like Ready Player One. And so I don't know like which ones are licensed by Ready Player One, like Asteroids or Battlezone, or I don't know what type of old arcade games are like in that where they would update them and make them Vive compatible. Do something with them from a Vive standpoint. And then what I'm wondering is like after all this is over, it might come to Viveport, but then we have to actually use Viveport.
They're gonna have Joust, and they're gonna have it with Teleport. I'm kidding. I'm totally making it up. I don't know anything.
Probably.
But I would hope, given the narrative in the book, that they go for Joust. Of the classical games. That's the one featured quite a bit in the book, and and then I just thought the Teleport would be funny, because how do you have Joust with Teleport?
Just quickly, this is a bit of a tangent, but did anybody see the trailer for War Games, the series that's coming out? I don't know if anybody's seen that. War Games, the movie that is referenced in Ready Player One. Well, apparently they're doing a TV series of this now as well. So the trailer's been released, and you can check that out on YouTube. But
the old Matthew Broderick one?
Yeah, that's the one. Oh. Yeah. But this is
to play a game.
That's it. That's in the trailer for this new series.
Oh.
But it's it looks very different to that movie. But I just wondered if anybody had seen that, just as a tangent. But
one more little tiny thing. I think it's just kind of ironic because like Ernest Cline, I remember back in the DevKit 1 era, like there's a blog post on the Oculus website where like he tried the Oculus internal prototype. He's like, wow, this is the future. Oculus is doing it, and then now it's like a Vive exclusive like thing for the movie. So that's funny.
I really hope they are going to use this Ready Player One and dump a ton of marketing money into it, and that they're going to at least announce the date and the price for the Pro, or maybe the price drop for the base Vive. That they're really going to take this as an opportunity to give it a good big push. I don't know that Ready Player One is going to really move the mainstream consumer in a way to push them towards VR, but I think here in the relative short term, it's the best chance that we have, and I'm hoping that HTC and the Vive brand can seize that opportunity, and because if it does have that mindset with the consumer, and it makes people want to go out and try VR or just start doing research on VR, then that will be to HTC's benefit naturally, because that's the brand that's going to be identified with it. If for some reason HTC doesn't give this a huge push and Ready Player One is successful, then I don't know that it would have been worth worth their effort. So I'm really hoping they do, and I'm looking really forward to the movie and hopefully people buying a bunch of VR stuff.
What would have been really smart, and maybe this is being planned and we just don't know about it yet, but it would be really, you think about Ready Player One. Okay, so all these people are going to the movie theater, a lot of like regular average people, right? They're going to go to the movie theater, they're going to watch this movie that is all about this VR future. It would be cool if when they're coming out of the movie theater, there was like a VR setup that you can wait in line, and it's like, oh, try the Ready Player One experience right there in the movie theater, and they actually have people like in a glass cube, you know, looking all cool. And like that would be huge, because then it's like, okay, people go into the movie theater, they watch the movie, or maybe even while they're waiting for the movie, you can queue into the line and get a little VR demo, and then it's like that one-to-one combo right there.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I mean, I'll be surprised if they don't pick up on that kind of use of like marketing this kind of stuff. I'm sure they'll have something like that, hopefully, and hopefully we'll get to try it at some point at home anyway. But I think we've got a few minutes left here, so we can go and talk about Steve, do you want to talk a little bit about Subnautica? We got a key for this, and this is one that I've been looking to really dive into, pun intended, for quite a while, actually. I know you've played it in early access. Sorry about that, everyone. I know you've been
best segue ever. So I've played it this week. Like you said, we got the key, and I know I've said this before, but I'm really into snorkeling and scuba diving and just being under the water. I think it's a whole nother world, and so Subnautica really speaks to me, and this game has been on my radar for quite a while, and I've waited to having some free time. I don't yet know that I actually have the free time for Subnautica, but either way, I started playing this game this week, and I've put about 3 hours into it, and I'm completely captivated by it. I think it's fantastic. I think it really benefits from VR because it does one of the things that people want VR to do, and that's take them somewhere else and really feel like they are somewhere else. I've been under the water. I don't deep sea dive or do anything, but I've been down in around 20 meters, and when I'm down 20 meters in this game, it feels almost the same. I have some of those feelings. Now in this game you go far further down than 20 meters, but let me reset a little bit and talk about Subnautica as a whole instead of just the way it feels. But it's first-person game. It's a survival game. You crash on this alien island, or this alien planet, but it's a mostly waterborne planet. There's hardly any land, or at least as far as you know, there's hardly any land. So the bulk of the planet is water, and it's blue water. It looks just like our ocean for the most part, any of our oceans in the Caribbean or wherever. And you crash, and as far as I've gotten, you don't really even know your own gender. The only reason I know that you're a man is from the trailers, but you don't really ever see yourself. I haven't seen a mirror. There isn't any voice. I haven't, outside of some radio communications. So it's very I guess desolate in that sense. Almost feels a little bit like Xing. But immediately, your spaceship crashes, and you're in this life pod, and this life pod is about the size of a 10 by 10 room, about the size of an average person's probably VR play space. And in this life pod you have a med kit, and you have some storage, and you have this fabricator on the wall. And this is all very futuristic type technology from hundreds of years from now. It's not any technology that we have now. But then you dive down from your pod, and you're underwater, and this is the first 5 minutes of the game, and then you're just color everywhere, and all this sea life, and all these fish swimming by, and immediately you got to start getting food, you got to start getting clean water to keep yourself hydrated, and then you quickly start gathering other materials, various ore like copper ore, titanium, and then you start building. And it's almost like the settlements in Fallout, where you can start building your underwater station, because you're crashed on this planet now, and you have to live here. So the narrative is very hard to come by. They don't comparing it to, say, a Fallout, where you get a big map and you give an objective and they tell you exactly where to go. This game doesn't give you any of that. Like, I've not been told where to go. I just have to go out and find it. Like, oh, I'm looking for this certain type of ore, and you don't know where to get it. You just literally have to go out and find it. So it's very exploration heavy. But there are times where it feels so, the exploration is so key, because it's where the magic sits in this game. Like, there's one spot where you kind of come to a deep drop off from sort of this reef area that's near your pod, and then there's this giant, like, I don't know, bigger than a damn blue well, and it's aggressive, and it makes this sound. The sound design in this game is incredible, and there's some politics there where the developer relatively recently fired their sound guy, and there was a whole big thing about that, but I'm not going to get into that here. But the sound, that person, that guy, he whether he should have been fired or not, I don't know, don't care, but he absolutely slayed the sound design. Like when this creature, you hear it kind of bellowing in the distance, and then as it gets closer to you, and then just all the music in the game is very cinematic. Like Subnautica has really surprised me. It is sort of I'll say, blown me away, but it pretty much has. Like I only want to play it right now. It's taken some of my Fallout attention away. In fact, it's taken all of it this week. So I'm highly recommending this game. It's $25, developed by, I think I have it written down here, Unknown Worlds Entertainment. It looks like, I don't know how long the game is. It looks like one of those types of games where you can get 50, 60, 100 hours out of it maybe. But exploration is king, the world is beautiful, and it feels very real in VR. It's one of the best feeling games of making me feel like I'm in this place. You guys have to play it.
Yeah, I played only sort of 10 minutes. I'm not ready to talk about it yet, so I'll probably get back to this on another show. But yeah, first impressions are really pretty impressive, actually. Chris, I'll go over to you. I think... Well, you've played a game, and Anthony and I have also played a little bit of this. I mean, this is sort of very early on again, but this is Island 359, which has now been released out of early access. We spoke about this a long time ago when it was first released into early access. But why don't you just tell us a little bit about Island 359?
Yeah, sure. It's basically a survival game, kind of like Jurassic Park, where there's these dinosaurs that are trying to attack you. And you have guns, you can kind of upgrade your weapons and all this stuff. It's a real cool idea. I love the idea of it. And I'm glad it's finally out of early access. But I don't know, like, I guess I can get into impressions of it. It's really buggy for me, and like it's just not polished enough compared to things I'm used to, I guess, is really the overarching problem I have with it. But overall, I think it's good if if you really want to play this dinosaur type game, then you'd still love it. But for me, I'm just like I look at my gun and it's tilted the wrong way for the controller, like on my touch controller. I'm like, that's weird. They could have fixed that before they released it. And then after I finished the tutorial, I like kept walking and I accidentally like fell off the world. I'm like, okay, well, I can't play the game anymore. So I don't know. It's full of bugs, but I feel like they were really ambitious in what they were trying to do, and they really did most of what they wanted to do with like, there's a lot. Like they have that full body inverse kinematic system, and they're like the first game to really incorporate that with Vive trackers and stuff. So I think they wanted to do a lot more with it, but they realized they just kind of had to like get it to release, I guess. But it needs a lot more work. I don't know what you guys think of it, but
well, I played this when it was first in early access, and I've got to say that there's quite a big contrast going back in now, because I haven't played this game for months and months, and I actually had an experience where I felt it was pretty polished. I've not really spent a huge amount of time in there, but to me, compared to how it was when I last played it, this is a pretty big improvement. And it makes sense. This has now been a full release out of early access, and I agree there's certain parts in it. You mentioned the gun, and I had a similar problem as well with the gun position and stuff like that. It didn't quite feel right, but I think overall I'm really impressed. I think the world looks great. The world looks better than I expected, and also the dinosaur models look better than from what I remember originally playing it. I don't know if that's the case or not, because I'm playing it on a slightly higher end system, and like I'm super sampling it a little bit more, so maybe that has aspects of it. But the jungle looks really good, the dinosaurs look really good. I've not dived into it like in a big way or anything, so I need to get into it a bit more. But first impressions of this compared to when I last played it were actually very positive.
Yeah,
Anthony,
Oh,
sorry.
Oh yeah, I just need to mention that like it ran terrible for me. Like I have it on low, and then I have the resolution scaling on 70% just to get 90. So I couldn't really comment on the graphics because for me they didn't look good, but I was on low. So I guess it just needs to be optimized more. But it sounds like if I had a better system, I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more.
Yeah, there were actually, just sorry, quickly before I go over to Anthony, there were actually, when I first went in there, I was struggling to get 90 frames per second, but then when I went into the menu again and readjusted graphical settings when I was actually within the game, it was actually easier to maintain 90 frames per second rather than when I was in sort of the main menu for whatever reason. I don't know why that would be, but yeah, anyway, Anthony, what do you think?
Yeah, so what I'll say about it is when this game originally came out, it came out in August of 2016. Okay, so August of last year was 1 year, and obviously it's more than that. So this has been in early access for well over an entire year. Now, uh, one complaint that I have is okay, so like Gary, I haven't played this in the longest time, and so I was coming to it after this huge long layoff of not playing it. And the big problems that I had with this game way back when it first came out is, okay, so back when it first came out, you had the little compy dinosaurs, the little ones that were running around like turkey sized, right? You had the raptors, and then you had an Allosaurus, and it was basically, those were the three dinosaur types that you had. And then a little, like, I don't know how many months later, they added a Triceratops. And I remember that was like a news story. Island 359 now has a Triceratops. And I went in there and I checked out the Triceratops. And then I didn't play this game for like an entire year. Okay, so going back into it now, what the main thing that I'm disappointed with this game is when you kill a compy, or when you kill a raptor, or when you kill the Allosaurus, or really basically any dinosaur in this game, they all die in the exact same animation, and they kind of crumple into a pile of bones, basically. And it's just awkward looking. It just doesn't look right. I hate the death animation. The other thing that bothers me about it is every single compy is exactly the same size. It's an exact clone of each other. They all look identical. Same thing with the raptors. Same thing with Allosaurus, Triceratops. Now, they have added a couple new dinosaurs. They added a Stegosaurus that looks pretty freaking cool, and then they added the T-Rex. And see, when you first start this game up, they've created a new intro, and in the intro, the T-Rex comes out, and it is impressive as hell. And when I was first in there, I was like, oh shit, this is Jurassic Park, baby. I'm into this, because I mean, who wouldn't love Jurassic Park in VR? And this is the closest you're going to get to that. So there is some value there. I tried the survival mode for like a half hour, and it's cool. I mean, the jungle is cool. It's like this go anywhere jungle, and they've had that since the very beginning. And so the jungle is cool. I got into some problems with the backpack and the tent, and like trying to put my tent away. I kept having problems with that. But I mean, the survival mode is like, you have a knife and you have a gun, but there's no ammo for your gun. And you've got to find food. You've got to sleep a certain number of hours. But the way I understand it, though, is like nothing has been finished. Like there's no end of this survival mode. There's no like, oh, you've completed the survival mode. There's nothing like that. It just kind of goes on forever. But it's kind of a cool idea, and the T-Rex looks good, the Stegosaurus looks good, but man, this is to every developer everywhere on planet Earth. Can't you write like some type of code where, like, for example, if you got a zombie game, can't we have zombies that are like super tall and skinny, and some zombies that are short and fat, and some zombies that are like really big up here, but they're really, like variants, like make them look like different colors. I mean, not different colored zombies, but when we look in nature, it's like talking about a horse. Is there one horse that is one size? No, you got brown horses, you got white horses, they got spots on them. Where's the variation? That's what I want.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to play a little bit more of this, and I gotta say, I'll just reiterate, I was actually quite impressed with this, having not played it for so many months and going back in. It actually surprised me a little bit about how much I thought it had improved over that time. So, okay, well, that's pretty much all I've got down. Has anybody got anything they want to mention quickly before we finish off the show?
I'll just say In Death is freaking amazing. It might be my favorite game of 2018. So incredibly underrated. I cannot stop playing it. It's awesome. I love it.
Well, if we're taking this opportunity, I'm just going to say Brass Tactics again. I know we keep mentioning about this. I can't stop playing this. I've finished the campaign now. I absolutely love this game. I hope they add more missions to the campaign, and I'm just going to keep playing it, either solo mode and the multiplayer, actually. I think it's such a great game. Okay. Well, anyway, that was VR Roundtable episode 74. Thanks for joining us again, and we'll see you all next time. See you next week.
See ya. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.